sister's a therapist and I tell jokes. We both want to help all kinds of folks.
Hello, and welcome to My Sister's a Therapist. This is a podcast, which is like a radio show, but we record it on a computer and you listen to it when you want. And it's about me. I'm a stand-up comedian. That's a person who gets on stage and trauma dumps for laughs. And my sister, she's a therapist. That's someone who goes to school for a long time so that other people can trauma dump on her and she doesn't laugh. Her name is Laura Ryan.
To be fair, sometimes I do laugh. Hello, I'm Laura Ryan, licensed marriage and family therapist. My main credit is sister to Joke Maverick, Virginia Jones.
Joke Maverick. It's a rainy Saturday in Portland. Just
it's rainy here
change.
too.
Sometimes it'll be 80 degrees in Austin and 40 degrees in Portland, and it will feel like we're on different planets. I see that you are drinking a Liquid Death, who I really think should sponsor us.
Rest in peach.
I like Armless Palmer, the tea and lemonade one.
That's funny. Armless Palmer. So this is from our listener, Angie. We have already read her review and we have an upcoming episode. Yes, we have an upcoming episode based on her feedback. Because when you write us an email, we're going to do an episode on it.
Probably.
She sent me her Spotify Wrapped for podcasts and we were number one. So I thought that was
Thank you, Angie.
And I said, you have excellent taste. Thank you so much for supporting our show. She said, I gave you a shout out on Facebook. So hopefully your excellent podcast gets more listeners. Happy holidays. Minnesota is the Target headquarters. And I know a few upper level execs. I put in a good word for them and Liquid Death. Okay. So we've got people on the streets.
We got a street
advertisers.
That's
Thank
awesome.
you, Angie.
Thank you, Angie. Now, Laura, it is your topic this week. Most weeks, the other person has no idea what the topic is. And this week, it is your turn to surprise me. What are we talking about?
This week, we're asking the question, does your therapist hate you?
To Laura's clients who are listening, not you.
Yeah, if you're a listener, that means I told you about the podcast, which means I genuinely like you.
But we were talking about this the other day, how therapists are in a wild position. I mean, I guess all service industry professionals, because if I have problems with a friend, I can stop talking to that friend. If a friend is truly making me bug crap crazy, I can say, hey, this is not working out for me. And I have. But you're kind of in a position where you sometimes have to talk to people that actively trigger or aggravate you.
And I think in other realms, if I was your lawyer, I could just fire you and it wouldn't be a big deal. You wouldn't be able to report me to my board.
If you were a sex worker, you could say, no, hairdresser. Yeah. That's true. There's a lot of service industry jobs where you have more autonomy.
Because ultimately, if anything happens to you, I am responsible.
And another difficult thing about your gig is that you are dealing with people who are actively having mental or emotional problems. You're not dealing with the general pop. Sometimes it feels like everyone you know is mentally ill. And that's because everyone you know is mentally ill.
Everyone I talk to all day.
Right.
Struggles with something. But I remember I was working in a shared office in the past and I had just had a really rough client. And I walked out and I saw one of my colleagues and we were between appointments. And I just said, oh my God, that was such a beat down. Can you believe this person was doing X, Y, and Z? And she said, you have to remember our patient population is mentally ill people.
Hairdressers are seeing people who need a haircut. I'm seeing people with drinking problems.
It's your day job?
Who are coming out to see comedy.
I'm seeing people who are struggling most of the time. Not all the time, but most of the time. I'm on a lot of different therapist pages on social media. And so there was a thread. The subject was, for anything that you've ever wanted to say to that one hitty client.
So we're getting the tea from inside therapists' headquarters.
Right. I'm lifting the curtain for a brief moment.
So what are some things that therapists want to say to their least favorite client?
I mean, these are amazing. I'm going to kind of pepper the whole episode with these just because I think they're so funny. Gee, I wonder why literally no one in your family nor any of your children speak to you anymore.
This is something that I come across in my life when people tell me, oh, and this person left me and this person cheated on me and this person betrayed me. Who's the common denominator? Have you ever considered that it might be you?
Because these are all the things that go through your mind, but you can't say because it'll create a rupture in the relationship and mess up trust. Here's another one. This is Chef's Kiss. You can't control our session and get what you need from it. Your resistance for receiving help is why you are so stretched for time.
Wow. That's deep stuff.
Truth bomb.
Truth bomb.
Yeah, I
ladies.
mean, I have this experience all the time of people
Yeah.
trying to tell me how to do my job. And I just think if you want to go and become a therapist and then
Right.
therapize yourself, then go ahead and do that.
And we do know that a lot of therapists, that's kind of what puts them on the path. It's way cheaper to go to school for 8 years and take on staggering amounts of debt than it is for me to just personally go to a therapist.
I think that's why people become therapists. I think people become therapists because it was their role in the family.
This is another reason. I mean, there's so many reasons why I couldn't be a therapist, but one of the main ones is that I am very tempted to say the funny thing, even if it is not the kind thing or the productive thing.
Well, sometimes I say the funny thing just because I have ADHD and it occurs to me. Someone told me this week that they didn't appreciate that, and I'll take it. So let's see. I'm going to go with one more. I'm not doing this with you today. Let's try again on another day.
That sounds like something that they have taken from their family and personal life and would like to apply to therapy, but can't.
I have the experience of having the same conversation with someone every week, sometimes for years. And the conclusion is always the same. And I end up saying the same thing to the person and they just nod their heads. This one also really spoke to me personally. Just P.S. There were pages and pages of comments. I just cherry picked my favorites.
Right.
If you know, then why do you keep doing it?
That's a hard truth. But I think we've all had experiences with friends who tell us the same story again and again. Why do you keep doing this?
Have you ever seen that YouTube video with the woman with the nail in her head?
No.
The format is a couples session and she's complaining. There's a close up on the man's face, so you can't see the nail yet. And she's saying, you just don't understand. I have this pain and it's really making me struggle. All my sweaters are ripped. And this guy, her husband is saying, it's because of the nail in your forehead. And she will not listen. And he just keeps saying it over and over again. That really spoke to me.
Have you considered that all your problems might come back to
that nail that's in your face?
I've spoken before about my predilection for friendships with borderline women. And I think I have found the pattern and eliminated it. I'm still very attracted to friendships with borderline women, but I recognize it now. I had to end a relationship, not because she had done anything to me or anything in particular. It's just that she kept doing the same stuff that was making her unhappy and then complaining to me about how unhappy she was.
Right.
And I was attempting to be a free therapist, which is 1, I'm not good at it. And 2, you shouldn't do anyway.
3, it's extremely dysfunctional.
It's super dysfunctional. I did have to say, I've enjoyed our friendship and I care for you, but I cannot put myself through this anymore. It's so frustrating to have the same conversation. Hey, I'm having trouble finding a relationship. And I would give my advice that I give, and then she would not take it. And then she would just come back to me again and again. Hey, I'm still having trouble finding a relationship. I'm like, okay, I don't know.
Yeah, I find it exhausting, whether it's a friend or a family member or a client. When it's a week after week thing, it's like, okay, oh, so you're still having headaches because of the nail in your face. Okay. So
I've thought about getting that out.
We talked about how to make a doctor's appointment to have that removed. We've talked about strategies for loosening it up with Vaseline, and you're just not doing it.
Not doing it.
You're just not doing it because all you want to do right now is take the heat off yourself by complaining and not do anything different.
Right. And that makes you feel better in the moment, but it doesn't solve the problem.
There's an article by Margarita Tartakovsky, Therapist Spill When I Dislike a Client. By the way, it was really hard to find articles about disliking clients. People don't want to publish that. There was a ton of articles about when you don't like your therapist, but there weren't a lot about when you don't like your client. Clients adapt in all kinds of ways to navigate their worlds. For instance, psychologist and writer Ryan Howes, PhD, shared these examples. A fake superficial exterior may actually be a mask they adopted to hide deep insecurities. An obnoxious sense of humor may be the way they learn to get attention from negligent caregivers. An annoying quirk may actually be the way an understimulated brain tries to stay alert. Just this week, I was working with a couple, and every time that one of the partners would say something compassionate or kind, the other person would respond with this silly voice, like they couldn't take it. And it was very uncomfortable to watch.
I have had this in friendships where there will be a character or a puppet voice or something more in relationships where more uncomfortable things will come from the puppet or the joke voice.
Right.
I know someone very close to me who had a relationship with her sister where they would talk to each other in the voices of dead cats.
The cats were alive when we were doing it, though.
I wasn't going to point out who it was. When they had something critical to say, it would be in a cat's voice, as if the cat is doing it.
Well, the cat did have a lot of opinions, to be fair. Yeah. Hey, why are you so ugly? Hey,
I wanted to leave 20 minutes ago. What are you doing?
it was a strategy that worked for us. Anytime there was any kind of real feeling, I could just see the other person really becoming defensive. I
Right.
guess that's the way I would describe it. It's a defense mechanism. Early in his training, Ryan Howes worked with a client who had a hard time making friends and always said yes, but anytime Howes shared his suggestions. No matter how hard he worked to help his client, he felt that his efforts were useless and unappreciated. While I appreciated the fact that he was seeking therapy to help find solutions to his problems, I began to resent how dismissive he was of the time and energy I was providing. Howes felt like he was being shut out and spinning his wheels.
That's the thing. People have a lot of ideas about what therapy is and isn't. But one thing I understand is that if you are in a long-term therapeutic relationship and you never do what is suggested, you're not doing it. Just showing up and sitting in a room and complaining is not therapy.
Just sitting in a room telling your therapist the same stories every week is not therapy.
I mentioned her a lot, but former guest and friend of the podcast, Jackie Cation, has a bit about being a child and not having any friends and complaining to a teacher or a counselor, I don't have any friends. And the person asked them, well, are you friendly?
Are you being a friend?
And she had never thought about that. She thought, oh, I don't think I have been friendly. If she went to that person every week and complained about the same thing and never, ever took any action, that therapist would slowly go insane.
The therapist would slowly begin to resent them because my sister doesn't listen to most of my advice. My child doesn't listen to most of my advice, but you are coming in, scheduling an appointment with me and paying me to give you my thoughtful, educated advice, and you're batting it away at every turn. And I have had this experience and I find it extremely frustrating because I just think, why are we here?
Why am I doing this?
Maybe my advice is hot garbage. And if you feel that way,
Right.
why do you keep coming in?
Something here is not working. Either the client needs to find another therapist or they need to start taking some advice because otherwise we're just spinning our wheels.
Right. So Beth Baker in the article, How to Deal with Clients You Don't Like, when can you capitalize on negative feelings and when should you refer a client out? She says, although therapists might not like to admit it, there are times when you don't click with particular people, or worse, you just don't like them. Perhaps the person is overly critical or negative, or you find your personalities are not a good match. You don't have to like the person to do a good job as a therapist, says June Wolfe, PhD, assistant clinical professor of psychology at Harvard Medical School. But if you actively dislike somebody, it's much harder to do a good job.
And that's the thing is because as a performer, you don't get to pick your fans. And as a therapist, you don't get to pick your clients. The clients pick you. So it is childish to assume that you would naturally get on with and click with everyone who comes through your door. You're not going to.
I think that a lot of people think that therapists are superhuman, or we don't have feelings or something, or we're like Jesus himself, where we just love and accept everything. But we are people ourselves and we have our own histories and preferences. And just like I don't like most people at a party, I don't like most people that I meet in the world.
I met a therapist briefly last weekend at a comedy festival. And she is also out of Minnesota, I believe. She goes by Dr. Holly. She's very funny and very personable, but in her act, she's like, yeah, so I help people. That's my job. That's what I do every day. My whole career is about helping other people. Also, I hate everybody. I hate all people. And it gets a laugh because it's a little shocking. If you are dealing with people in times of stress who are not behaving their best every day, it's hard to have empathy for the human race.
I remember I used to work at Eckerd Drugs, now defunct. And I remember
Rest in power, Eckerd.
Jack Eckerd Corp. I remember working there was very stressful because everybody who's coming in is in a hurry and is sick. And so I remember one day we had a line out the door. I think one of our cashiers was sick, probably got it from one of our customers. I had this incredible line, and there was a woman waiting about midway in the line, and she was holding an extra strength bottle of Tylenol. So she obviously was in pain, and she took the bottle after she was waiting what she perceived as too long and threw it at me and hit me in the chest.
Yeah, that's hard to deal with.
I had a massive headache the other day after just processing someone's trauma. It's tough. It's a hard job.
And I used to do after school programs with kids, which is not being a teacher, but I developed so much empathy for teachers because sometimes I would come out of that class so wrung out and I just felt like I was gray and I didn't have any emotional capacity or energy. They just suck it out of you. And I was never doing it 8 hours a day. I don't know how anyone does it.
I think these women-led caring professions are incredibly exhausting. The main thing with my clients, because you said I don't get to pick, I kind of do. I've had people call me, and just from the voicemail, I know that this isn't going to work out for me.
In your defense, it's not just because she doesn't think she'll like them. It's because they have mental illness that she is not always an expert in, or have a personality disorder that she knows is going to be really challenging for her.
It's going to be a problem. And I can usually tell from the first voicemail or phone call. And then when they come in, if I don't feel like it's a good fit, I won't really push for continuing appointments. And they usually don't come back because they can also tell it's not a good fit, because you really have to have an established therapist-client relationship that's good in order for the therapy to be good.
When I have started therapy, the first question that people ask me is, do you like your therapist? I never know how to answer that question because they're just a person doing a job. I've never had a therapist that I just initially disliked. That seems like a weird response to me.
I think it's more of, do you feel like this person has your best interests in mind? Do you feel like this person has empathy and compassion for you? To me, that's when I know I like somebody. And my longest term therapist was incredibly sarcastic and inappropriate and had a very colorful personal history. And that's why I could relate to her. We had similar trauma backgrounds. They say when you say, I like you, what you're really saying is, I'm like you. And I find that most of my clients have a similar trauma history to mine, have a lot of the same shared experiences.
This is a feeling that I've had talking to someone at a party or someone I just met, and we come across something huge that we have in common. For example, Mormonism or any other extremely religious upbringing. And then you continue the conversation and you have another huge thing in common, like an early marriage that didn't work out, or being the adult who's resistant to having children. And I click with you because you're me. We have some core things in common, and that makes me feel like I already know you.
Sometimes I'll do impressions of what I think that their parent would say. And they're like, how do you know? I say, because that was my parent, or that is my parent. Karen Marotta, PhD, a Milwaukee psychologist and author of the forthcoming book, Interactive Psychodynamic Techniques, takes a different position, emphasizing that there are good clinical reasons for not treating people you don't like. Marotta says that therapists tend to feel guilty about deciding not to work with a particular client and are reluctant to do so. But she adds that recent research has shown that the empathy required for therapeutic success is only possible when the therapist basically likes the client.
Another thing that I'm thinking about is court-appointed lawyers. You just get assigned a person, and you can get assigned a person who unalived his family or who did something that you find disgusting. You still have to work with that person.
I remember the trial of the Jinx, Bob Durst. I found out that after the trial was over and he got COVID and died basically right after sentencing, none of his lawyers visited him in the hospital. Right. Nobody came to see him. There were a lot of people he's been funneling money to and all this kind of stuff. And when they realized that the golden goose wasn't going to give any more eggs.
And also, not for nothing, he's killed a lot of his close friends.
He's only killed 3 of them that we know of. So thought of this way, taking on clients you may not warm up to can actually prevent them from getting the therapy they need. In these instances, Marotta recommends gently referring the disliked clients to a colleague who you believe will work better with them. Miranda advises using meta-communication, communication about communication when your client is obnoxious or aggressive. Quote, it's important to explore the experience of dislike and try to figure out what's going on.
On the other side, I have been looking up, do I hate my therapist? I found a fun article. These are not good reasons to leave a therapist and good reasons to leave a therapist. Reasons you
Your
might,
therapist keeps falling asleep during the appointments.
your therapist you don't feel is listening to you. Your therapist you feel is judging you or judging your experiences. Your therapist is pushing your boundaries, pushing you to act in ways that you're uncomfortable with. Here's a list of ethical violations in therapy. I know Laura is very familiar with these to the point of boredom, but I find them very interesting. Nothing's on this list that didn't happen. Include the following: inappropriate touching, initiating a romantic or sexual relationship with a client, violating a client's right to discretion, aka talking about them to other people, countertransference, where the therapist associates the client with someone they know. Does that just mean you remind them of someone?
Yes, I've experienced this a lot. I think if you can control it, you can still do good therapy. Sometimes you'll find, oh, this person really reminds me of my mother, or this person really reminds me of my dad, and it's triggering.
Because Jane Austen is proof that there's only been 12 kinds of people in all of history. Asking the client to keep a secret about a crime.
Yeah, I do that all the time. I just killed Bob Durst. Don't tell anybody.
Reaching out to a client's doctor, hospital, or prior therapist without consent. Unethical billing or stealing money, also a problem. They're like, these are real problems. If you just feel like your therapist is not doing the things you want to do, and I know this isn't the funniest episode on my side, if your client knew what was best for them, they would be doing it.
Correct. And I think a person trying to push you to work past your current level of experience is a sign that they're a good therapist, because you're not doing what you need to do to get well. Because if you were, you wouldn't have called me.
I think many people who have not done therapy before think of therapy as a passive thing.
Yeah, something that's done to me while I just lay here.
When I get my hair cut, I don't do much. I say, this is what I'd like. And then they try to do that. And then I go home.
Well, I told you about my experience at the hair school where the girl was saying, and what's this formula for your color?
Therapy is an active activity where you need to try stuff and stretch your comfort zones. And that's the only way it can work.
And although I hate confrontation, it's really important that both of us engage in it actively when it's happening. They were talking about some ways to confront a client. A psychologist might raise the problem in one of three ways: as the patient's experience, quote, you seem angry with me, end quote; as an observation, quote, it seems like we're playing cat and mouse, end quote; or your own experience, quote, I feel like you're taking shots at me, end quote. That conversation becomes a part of therapy. Don't let difficult moments build, but raise concerns as they happen, Moran says.
So what are some other best of things that therapists wish they could tell their clients?
Maybe leading with trauma instead of waiting till the end of the
Right.
That's called a doorknob confession, and it happens all the time. We'll spend the whole hour talking about their cat box, and then in the last 5 minutes, they go, oh, yeah, I was SA'd last week.
Don't you think that's the most important thing? I understand why that happens. You want to talk about the thing, but you think, oh, I'm just building up to it. I'm just going to do this easy stuff first.
And then you're at 50 minutes, and we don't have any more time. Get off your phone. I actually make the client turn their phone off when they come in.
Imagine actively looking at my phone during therapy. That sounds
Oh, a lot of people.
not only disrespectful, but counterproductive.
You're paying for my time and you're spending the time scrolling on your phone. Why are you doing that? I remember a lot of parents will say, well, I need to keep the phone on in case something happens. But I remember one client in the past, she was a business owner and she would take calls all through the appointment. You want to do the thing where you're quote unquote going to therapy and you want to get credit for doing therapy, but you don't want to engage in the therapeutic process.
The therapeutic process is uncomfortable. And I think that people get a lot of comfort from their phones. And I think that as a hashtag girl boss, business always feels like a justifiable excuse. Sorry, this is business, but it's also a waste of your time. I think that I have asked people who are using their phones in an inappropriate phone situation. I've only done it a couple of times, but it makes them very angry as I go, how's your game of Angry Birds? How's that Angry Birds going?
I will do that. I'll go, oh, what's going on your Instagram? What's happening?
Right.
Any good TikToks that I need to know about?
The thing that you're doing on your phone feels important because your phone has programmed you to do that. But it's not as urgent as you think it is.
Right. I find actually with couples, it's the hardest with the phones. For some reason, they don't honor my request to turn their phone off when they walk in the room. You, sir, are an a-hole, and you, dear, are bat-ass crazy.
A hard thing about couples therapy, as a person who's been in couples therapy, I want the therapist to side with me. You're not supposed to.
And what I usually find when I'm sitting with a couple is that both of them are wrong.
Right.
Your commitment to your point of view and your lack of interest in finding out your partner's point of view is the problem. I'm going to read one more and then I'm going to go back to the articles. Please just go crawl in a hole and die.
It's not productive, but it feels good to think about, doesn't it?
And I think if you've gotten to that point with your client, you really do need to fire them.
If I'm dating someone that I don't like, it's not a kindness to them.
No.
Like, it can feel short term like a kindness. They really want somebody. They're really interested in me. But if I'm not interested in them and I know I'm not, it's just a waste of everyone's time. In therapy, if you really do not connect with someone and they're just frustrating you every day and they're not making progress, it's probably best that they see somebody else.
And I find for me, the big marker when things are not working out is when I look at my daily schedule and I'm preparing in the morning and I'm looking at who's coming in and I see your name and my heart sinks.
Right.
That's when I know I need to fire you.
This is not working out.
Protect the integrity of your practice. Some clients may be so taxing that they deplete your energy for the rest of your clients. Limit the number of emotionally exhausting clients that you take on.
This feels like an episode for therapists.
It is.
If you're in therapy or thinking about therapy, it's also an interesting perspective of this is just another human being and they're not put on this earth to listen to my BS.
Well, they kind of are. I think it's like the 80-20 rule. There are a couple in my career, I can think of off the top of my head, 10 people who took 80% of my day in terms of my emotional health and my energy and my effort. And then the rest took 20. And to me, you can't have a lot of people like that in your practice. It's too much. Don't view referral as a failure. It's impossible for therapists to help every client who comes through the door. Finding a therapist who is a good match as soon as possible is in the client's best interest. It's hard to accept the fact that there may be some people we simply are not well suited to treat, says Benke, but that's part of our growth as clinicians. This episode is for therapists on some level, but I follow S workers on TikTok. I'm never going to become one of those, but I'm very interested in what goes on behind closed doors. Jeffrey Kotler wrote an article called When Therapists Hate Their Clients. One therapist, a veteran of 2 decades in the trenches, was heard to say to her colleagues who had been commiserating about their caseloads over coffee, "I've cut my practice down to 5 clients and I hate them all." Everyone laughed uproariously.
If you were SA'd as a child and you have a client who has a history of SA, that's not going to be easy for you.
Yeah, I have had rapists in my practice and it's tough. Sometimes the topic is very difficult. So the topic of child abuse, whether it's SA or physical abuse, it's very hard for me to sit through and hear your stories, but I don't hate you for
No.
However embarrassed some of us are about our genuine feelings, it is really of professional practice that we do hate some of our clients. They do not pay us enough to put up with the obstacles they run us through, the games they play with our heads, the obstructive, vindictive, manipulative ploys that we inadvertently find ourselves caught up in. Refer back to our Cluster Bs episode. That's why I don't work with folks in the Cluster B, because it's just, I'm doing 90% more work just for this one person and it's too much. And they're not taking on board any of my advice.
It's interesting because the Cluster Bs that I've known, although they're very unhappy and in high drama all the time, they very rarely think that they need therapy. And I had a friend who was diagnosed as borderline, told she had BPD.
Clinically diagnosed.
And was like, well, I'm not going to go to therapy. Oh, well, what are you doing? Why do you care to get a diagnosis? Just to write it down or put it on a t-shirt or whatever?
Here are some other of the greatest hits. For the love of humanity, take a shower.
Oh my God. That's something that sex workers have in common with.
Oh yeah. But they can make you take a shower. I can't make you take a shower.
Wow.
But I've had that experience. People who live sort of a hippie lifestyle and do not wear deodorant or bathe regularly. And it really leaves a funk in the office. I remember a client who had incredibly smelly feet and would take their shoes off every appointment.
I don't understand this. I don't understand why I would go into someone's office and take my shoes off. I don't know why you would think that's acceptable.
I don't mind if you take your shoes off. Just don't have smelly feet if you're going to do it. Because you know if your feet smell.
Yeah.
Your mom is a dumb bee. Stop defending her and stop telling me how to do my job.
That is hard though. an element in I think most adults therapy is realizing that a lot of their problems were put in motion by their parents. That's a hard thing to admit to yourself. No one wants to be the abused kid.
It's especially hard when you're still being abused by this person.
Right.
You won't let me share my unvarnished, honest opinion about them. And you get super defensive about it because it feels better for you to pretend that your parent is a different person than who they actually are.
Yeah. If your parent is so great and you're doing so well, why are we even here? Go home and enjoy your great life that you have.
Right. Even though your mom told you that you were a fat loser, it's fine. That was just her being concerned. You got it. Your kids aren't the problem. Your drinking is the problem. Your enablers who you have decided to surround yourself with are the problem. That's one of my favorites. Well, when I say, hey, have you thought about going to an AA meeting because you're an alcoholic? And they're just like, what? No, I just want to cut down. Well, have you ever successfully done that? Well, no. Okay.
Now I have therapy.
Therapy is going to replace Alcoholics Anonymous, I'm sure of it. I suppose if we thought about it, we would have to be crazy not to dislike someone who places additional and unnecessary burdens on our lives and who evoke fear, aversion, guilt, and inadequacy in us because of his or her ability and interest in being dependent, self-destructive, and controlling.
You and I have discussed just a general personality type that we call the go eat worms syndrome. And that's a very trying personality. Someone who just sits in front of you and insists nobody likes them and it's not their fault and they're victimized.
And it's just a mystery.
What could be happening? I don't know.
So this therapist is talking about a pretend client to elucidate their point. A therapist is exquisitely sensitive to their client Carolyn's neediness, or to anyone's for that matter. The therapist is currently making child support payments that are more than he can afford. He is seeing many more clients than he feels comfortable with, but he needs the extra money. Everyone seems to want a piece of him, his ex-wife, his children, and the 30-some clients who he has begun to fantasize of as leeches clinging to his body, draining his lifeblood, and then Carolyn walks in.
I mean, 30 clients a week.
That's a lot. I've done it before. I would not recommend. It's very tough. I've had some clients who are codependent who are like, well, don't you need to take a break? Don't you? And I'm like, girl, I don't have time.
Right.
I'm going straight from my last appointment to you. And that's how this works. And sometimes in my next appointment, I have to take a breath and say, I'm sorry, my last appointment was really hard. The therapist puts on a mask of compassion, pretending to care. His disdain and revulsion for this dependent woman, another leech, inadvertently seep through. Carolyn can sense that he does not like her. She has vast experience reading men who act as though they care about her, but only tolerate her presence. But I feel like when my life is going really well, when everything's above board, I'm good. But when things in my personal life are going haywire, it's really hard for me to not feel sometimes like people are leeches because I don't have enough.
You have
give.
limited capacity. Yes. You don't have an unlimited, boundless capacity for patience and understanding.
Right. But I still have to go to work because I'm self-employed. Difficult clients threaten us in ways we would prefer to ignore and avoid. They challenge our expertise. They test our patience. They threaten our sense of competence and professionalism. It's for these very reasons that we prefer to keep potential failures at a distance, disown them whenever possible, and blame the client as being difficult whenever we feel threatened. I'm going to read you a couple more of these. Just leave. You're wasting your time.
That's valid. If they're not taking anything on, you're wasting your time and your money. Like, hey, man, why are you spending your money on this?
I used to feel that way a lot, but what I figured out is that a lot of the clinical relationship is where the cure is. It's about them having a trusting person who they can come to every week and dump on and feel like that person is there for them. Even if we're not making clinical headway, a lot of times it's just about building trust in the relationship. So I actually do have patience for that. Unless it's been several years, that becomes exhausting. Not everything is about you.
That's a hard lesson.
Yeah, I've had that too. I've had people say, oh, well, you just looked at me in a strange way. And I'm making up stories about, your face and what this means. And I'm wondering if I'm too much. And of course, that's an opportunity to explore their stuff.
Not everything is about you is a great thing to just take on for your whole life. And it will help you solve a lot of your problems, like why the barista at the coffee shop seemed curt, or why you didn't get that promotion you thought you were going to get. People are not necessarily out to get you. You are not the center of everyone's universe. You're only the center of your own.
Absolutely. The idealism, unrealistic expectations, and search for perfectionism lead a therapist to experience much disappointment. Clients are not sufficiently grateful for all the effort that has been expended on them. They fail to live up to the therapist's expectations for where they should be. Further, the therapist feels disappointed in his or her own performance when a client does not cooperate. I must be doing something wrong. If only I were more skilled, intelligent, creative, surely I could solve this problem. So we waffle between defensiveness and perfectionism, and it keeps us from being realistic about what we can and cannot do in this role. Just because that's your opinion doesn't make it right.
I wish people could say this stuff because it's very true.
I say feelings aren't facts.
Even though that's something the right says to hurt snowflakes' feelings.
That doesn't mean it's not true. Feelings are not facts.
No.
A broken clock is right twice a day. You know, after studying for years, getting licensed and practicing for decades, I just don't know what I do without people telling me how to do my.
Oh, God. Thank you so much for coming into this office and helping me understand something that my 20 years of experience have not taught me. And as counter to all my training, I really needed this.
I am not a mechanic. Your child is not a car. You cannot drop them off and pick them up after I fix them. This is why I don't work with kids anymore, because that's what most parents want. They want to identify their child as the problem, and they want me to fix the problem, but they don't want to do anything about their dynamic or their role.
How could the child's problem have nothing to do with the adult? How would that even work?
Exactly.
You're just a bad seed.
Well, there's a movie about it.
That's right.
Yes, it was me who reported you to CPS.
Sometimes it's necessary.
So, Virginia, in closing, what are your final thoughts on this topic?
This has been an interesting topic because even though I know a therapist pretty well and I've had therapists, I think it's sometimes hard to remember that therapists are just people working with basically the same materials as the rest of us.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think of us as like nuns or priests or something, where we've taken a holy sacrament. And what I tell people is I'm just an effed up weirdo, just like you. I just went to school for longer.
I went to school. I have identified some parts of my effed up weirdo-ness that I can improve, but that's all I got.
Even with this thread, I found a lot of people were judgmentally writing and saying, well, you shouldn't say that. You shouldn't think that. Like even
that's
the
what the thread is. Yeah.
Exactly. But even the therapists are judging us.
What are your final thoughts on this topic?
My final thoughts are it feels extremely validating to hear from other people that I don't know personally that they're having the same experience that I am. And it's one of those kind of universal truths. It reminds me that sometimes I'm not the problem and sometimes I am the problem. And I just need to figure out when I'm one or the other. Virginia, if people want to find out about your comedy career, how would they go about doing that?
The most important thing for shows is my Instagram, which is at Badinia, Badinia. But I also have a website, Badinia.com, and also my TikTok, which I have been putting up TikToks at Badinia on TikTok. If you have suggestions, comments, funny stories, ideas about how we can become more business acquaintances with Liquid Death, you can write us at hello@mysistersatherapist.com. If you are a corporate entity who wants
You're a representative of Liquid Death, Waterloo, Sunday Riley, AAA, Costco, or Imperfect Food,
you can write us at hireus@mysistersatherapist.com. Laura, where can people find you on the internet?
They can find me at my professional website, lauraryan.org. They can also find me on our website, mysistersatherapist.com. If they want to follow me on TikTok, they can do so. I currently have 572 followers. So join the ranks at I am Laura Ryan.
Pushing that big 600.
Well, yeah, that's true. I'm pushing that big 600. Also, you can follow My Sister's a Therapist on Instagram at My Sister's a Therapist.
Laura, this is the part of the show where you sometimes read a review or an email you've received from a regular listener. Do you have one this week?
I sure do. This is from Spotify, from Kendra Abin. Thank you, Kendra. She listened to the Dad Show and she said, the more I hear about others' childhoods, the more I see how varied our experiences are. Love the episode.
Thank you, Kendra. And we've got something in the hopper for you. Wink, wink.
Nudge, nudge. Say no more.
And in the words of the immortal, the immaculate,
the esteemed
Billy Ray Valentine, Capricorn, we can make it, baby.
Me and you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.